Welcome to Workers and Resources Soviet Republic, and in this video what I want to do is talk about the aircraft and aluminium production components of the new update which was released into the test branch on the 4th of December 2020 if you're watching this in the future. The actual update is called Planes and Tourism. Now I'm not going to be covering tourism in this video because I think that really deserves a completely separate video where we can talk about the details and explore things a little bit more. Now, before we get into discussing how the airport can be put together, a bit of a disclaimer: you need to be aware that this is being newly released into the test branch. Therefore, there may be some elements of this update that may change by the time it is delivered into the stable branch. So please be aware of that situation. The second thing is that what I'm going to be talking about is really my first impressions based on maybe an hour and a half of playing around with these mechanisms. So there may be one or two things that I may get wrong, and I think that's enough to get going. So what we're going to do now is take a look at what I've laid out as a basic airport, which is I've built a runway and a taxiway, and I've created these what you call aircraft docking pads here. And the reason you need these docking pads is this is the way you actually purchase aircraft. And I suppose in some ways you could say that you could probably park aircraft here, but they seem to be more of a role of purchasing. Now, before I actually show you the aircraft, I want to talk about the fact that aircraft come in different sizes, and those sizes are reflected in the length of the runway. So one of the key things you need to consider when you're planning an airport is what size of aircraft are you going to fly, because that will define what size of runway you're going to need to build. And I think it's also quite important to emphasize that the aircraft have different lengths of takeoff. So what you need to do is take a very careful look at the aircraft. And one thing I would recommend is if you're coming to this new and you intend to use this in your let's play in your own gameplay, I suggest you do a quick test with Unlimited to familiarize yourself with the different aircraft. And we'll start with what you could call the short range takeoff aircraft. Now, if you come into the Russian one here, you will see that this is a passenger plane. It's got a takeoff distance of 250 meters. And if I come in here, this is the ones we can purchase from NATO countries. This is 240 meters. And more importantly, this one says 480 meters. And this actually emphasizes the fact that you've got small aircraft here. And you could say, right, what I'm going to do is build a short runway. And if you need to access all the stuff for the aircraft plane construction is in this area here. So what we can do is just build here, and we can build, say, we'll go to 260. Not a runway. No, that's the runway. Sorry. You can see. So we can build one, say 267 meters like that. And oops, put the auto build on for the moment. And of course, one thing you're going to need to do is connect. Not that. What you can do, quite strangely, is connect runways, but what you can't do is cross over them. But I don't know if you can actually do this. Actually, yeah, that's interesting. So you can actually have crossing runways, but I don't think you can go off an angle. So they'd have to be right way crossing runways. I'm just going to build a taxiway in like that. And you can see this runway here, and if you kind of lose track of how the distance is, if you come to build runway, in fact, this now, the distance there shows up on taxiways, even roads. So if you come here, if I build a road here, you'll see. Sorry, I'm digressing, but you can actually get the length now from roads as well, which is fairly useful. Anyway, back to here. And literally to purchase an aircraft, we'll buy a cheap one there. You can see the aircraft now appears on this pad here. Now, if you move up to the next level, you'll see and of course there's always backward compatibility. So you'll see that these aircraft now have 690, 650, 680, 740, and 690. So if you want to buy the aircraft here, we'll take a quick look at the what we can purchase with dollars. Obviously, what we can purchase with dollars from this one is the same aircraft as before. Oh no, we got the 480 there. So what we'll do is we'll just purchase that. I mean, the aircraft models look really cool as well, actually. And then the next one up is, if you come here, the aircraft are getting a bit bigger now, and you can see that these now, again, we've got backward compatibility And you can see here the runway now needs to go up to 870 to be able to buy these aircraft. I think we'll buy one of these that we've now got here. And we've actually got a cargo aircraft here, like that. Then of course at the top we get the biggest aircraft of all, and this is the TU-144, which has got a takeoff distance of 960, and I think it's the TU-142, which has got a takeoff distance of 970. I'm not sure, and you can see we don't get much choice in the way of aircrafts from the West, but one thing I can almost guarantee is the modders are going to have a lot of fun with aircraft going forward. I think we'll buy the, I think is it called Concorde Siggy, which is, I mean, it does look very similar to the Concorde. It's got the drop nose, and the only thing is it's got the front aerofoil wings. Anyway, so we've now built the aircraft. Now these pads up the end are just multiple parking, and I think they act, I think they are the equivalent of this pad here, but you can build them in blocks of 3. So how do we get our airport up and running? Well, we need a certain number of buildings, and probably what we're going to need here is a airport terminal. You've got 2 types of terminal. You've got the actual passenger terminal and the cargo terminal. The one thing you want to be aware of is that if you look on at this pad, you can see there's no connections for aircraft. And what you need to do is actually make sure the road is facing away from your runway. So what you're going to do is put in this here, build that, and I'll put the cargo one in as well. And this one's slightly different. You can see you've got the open pad just in front of the terminal. So we're going to put this in like that. And well, we can work with this one now because it's got there. You can see they've got this apron here. Now, what you've actually got to do to make these operational is then, this comes down again to the fact that when you're going to build an airport, you've really got to think about what the design's going to be. Because, I mean, we've got a big one here. I don't know if I can get a full 75 slot. And what you need to do is just literally drop this in, and you see it goes green, and you can drop that there. And I think we'll put, see if we can slip a 50 on as well. And what you'll see is we've now got that there. And of course, what we have to do is build a, what we really should do is build a taxiway, because aircraft shouldn't go straight out onto the runway. So we've now built ourselves a passenger terminal. And what we can do again now is just come down here. And the cargo terminal doesn't seem to be quite so, I don't know if I can fit this in. I haven't really experimented that much with it. I don't know, well, I'm a bit worried about that there. So we're going to have to try and flatten that area off there. It's going to be a bit of a problem. Just flatten that out. And what we'll do is see if we can get 2 on here. As I say, I haven't really experimented that much with this. I think you could possibly get extra ones on here, but it might be a bit tight. Let's just have a look. Yeah. So I think you're basically looking at oops, 50%. Thank you, game. Sometimes you can on the game a little bit like that. So we've now got a passenger terminal and a cargo terminal, but for the aircraft to be able to take off, what we actually got to build now is a control tower. So what we're going to do is put in a control tower. Of course, we're going to need workers in here, so what we're going to have to do is quickly throw together a small town. Let's see. We're not. We'll just. Pop that together. We better put in a shopping centre. I think that will make them happy. We should have plenty of workers in here. What they should do now is start going into this area. And of course, we got no power supply, so we have to come in here. Just maybe get that in That's enough. And we'll just run this. And just connect that up there. Also worth noting that these need power as well. So we've got this here. We've got there. What you see now is the control tower has an entry for each individual runway. Although to be honest, the one going across here is probably going to be a bit dangerous. Now the way to get your aircraft to go out and actually fly is by exactly the same as you do with any vehicle. You need to come here, and then what you can do up here is say I want to fly out of the area, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to fly to there, and what you'll see now is the aircraft will come down to here. Of course, we've got no passengers, and if we click on it we can get a nice view of it taxiing. What it will do is it will taxi down into this area here. And now I haven't actually, all my test play, I didn't actually use this aircraft, so I'm very curious to find out what's actually going to happen. And you can see he's loading up with fuel because each one of these needs a fuel connection. So he's taking on lots and lots of fuel. And what I've noticed is that aircraft are probably going to be pretty heavy on the fuel situation. So you do need to be aware of that as well. In fact, I think I'll be completely honest that using aircraft is going to be very much a late game mechanic. I'm just going to... Away we go. And because this aircraft is actually leaving the board... Wow. Maybe I should have chosen a slower aircraft. He literally disappeared over the horizon. Just to emphasize what I mean about the fuel situation is that if you come in here, you'll see that these terminals, I mean, obviously I've got this on auto purchase, but if you were doing this manually, of course I can't build because of infrastructure, these runways have a very big area around them. Just to show you, wow, he was back quick. Then again, I'm on top speed at the moment, so, but just to show you, maybe we can do it down here. You can see that I mean, effectively, in order to be able to support the fuel distribution on here, you're really going to need a fuel tank here. And you can see what actually happens is as the runways get occupied, they go there. And again, when you're planning an airport, you do need to consider how busy your airport's going to be, how many aircraft you're going to get. I mean, probably you wouldn't build all these landing pads here in a normal runway setup. It's also worth remembering that this is very big. So like, if any of you follow my current series, I can't honestly see how I'm going to be able to build a airport on that map, because one, there's no flat areas, and the few kind of flat areas I've got, I really want to build the industry in. Anyway, so that is the basics of running an airport. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to here, and we're going to build a brand new airport here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the auto purchase, because what I want to show you now is building an airport manually. So first thing we're going to do is plan the runway, and where are we going to put the runway? I think we can do it here. I think we're going to go for, say, something like 870 meters. Yeah, well, let's go about that far then. We've got the runway there, we'll just accept it. Now the problem with the runway is that if you had a construction office, and I don't know if I can knock one up actually. I'm going to knock up a quick construction office. Not road construction office. If I put a road in, so we put a road in, like, say, like this. We'll purchase these from. So if you build a construction office like that, you come here. I know I've got no mechanisms, nothing's assigned, but you see here, road connection with construction office does not exist. And this is where this building here comes in. So what you have to do is you have to build a little bit of road like that. And then what you've got to do, quite literally, is build a taxiway there. And what you'll find now is that if you come in here, you will be, because I haven't built this, sorry. You have to build this first, and then the first thing you'd have to do is build this, which is part of the job. So you come in here. You can see the auto detectors actually picked up the unfinished taxiway and the road connector, which is quite interesting. And if I had various assorted vehicles here, they would then go in and build this area here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to auto purchase and build another airport over here, because that is going to tie in very much to the aluminium production over here. So what we're going to do is just purchase these out here. I mean, strictly speaking, you should only really need one of these parking lots, because in theory the aircraft to go. But I suppose these work as depots, so what you probably would want to do is have a couple of them so that you can park the aircraft should you need it. And we'll just hook these up here. I don't think we're going to bother with it. So that's the way it's going to go. So we've got this built here. You being built? Okay, will you please build that? We've now got that built, and of course we're going to need a control tower. Yep. Now, as far as I know, this control tower could be virtually anywhere. I'm not too sure exactly why, but I mean, intuitively, I would think that the control tower would need to have some form of connection, but it doesn't seem to be the way. Of course, what we're going to do is pop in some big flats in here. Well, just use a slightly different variant. And let's drop these in. And of course, we'll just put in a small shopping centre, because they get upset if they haven't got anything to eat. And what you'll see here is we've got no power again. But very conveniently, I've put in a power supply over here. Why's that not built? Quite interesting. We'll just build that. And we will... Oops. Messed that up a little bit, but... Where's the... Should I put in a distribution terminal here? Ah, maybe I didn't put it in. Let me just check. Yep. We need one of these. Just hook you up to there. Let's just do this properly. Just put you in like that. Hook you up to there. And what we should now have is power. Oh, still didn't get close enough. Oh well. I'm going to need power over here in a minute anyway, so what we'll do is you there, you and of course these don't have power. Let's get rid of you and move you. As you may have guessed, I am slightly improvising this video at the moment. And hook you up there. That should give me power to this. Yes, we got power there. And we've actually got workers and passengers now in here, working our airport terminal. So I think maybe what we need to do is give them something to do. Now, I can't remember how long I think we've got enough length for here, isn't it? How long did I build this runway? This is the dilemma, see. We've got to remember how long was this runway? 800, so we can build a 740 aircraft. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to buy a cargo plane, because what I want to do is just test something. What we're going to do is, yeah, we can allocate you. Of course, what we're going to do is we're going to fly everyone over to here. We're going to drop you off here. And we literally allocated a cargo aircraft to a passenger. I'm sure I saw somewhere where they said there was a button that we could flip the aircraft over. Anything else? Move to this stop. Apologies for this insert into the video, but after I finished the recording, I actually went looking for aircraft where the change vehicle type button was enabled, and I actually found it with this TU-104 aircraft, and you can see it's just here. And what you can do is click this and it changes the vehicle type. So I assume that this will only apply to aircraft that has both a passenger and a cargo equivalency. So that is the button that I was trying to find, and hopefully that is a bit more informative. And he's got nowhere to fly, so let's just get rid of him. Maybe that's a mistake. Maybe it only applies to certain aircraft. Okay, let's just try again. Sell vehicles. You can see here, this button here has been added and to not just the airport terminals, but also vehicle depots and train depots. It allows you to literally sell all the vehicles in one go. I think I'll just play fair here, and I'll just put an aircraft on. We'll actually do it properly, I suppose. I'm going to add you, fly over to here. And we're just gonna, and you can see what we've actually got now is the two aircraft sharing the same airport. So what I've done now is we've now got an external flight which will bring in tourists. We've also got an internal flight flying between the two airports. One thing you need to be aware with the control tower is that if the number of dispatchers drops below a certain level, your aircraft will not fly. So we got that there. Now that is virtually all you need to know about. I'm using airports to say the big factor is the size. Now we've got our airports up and running. What I'm going to do now is start talking about aircraft production, which will then lead into producing aluminium. Because as far as I can tell, there's only two reasons you're going to produce aluminium. One is to produce it and sell it, which could be quite an early game advantage, although I give you a warning that producing aluminium is quite expensive, so it's really more of a mid to late game resource. And as far as I can tell at the moment, the only in-game requirement for aluminium is to build your own aircraft. And if we go into construction, again with this update, some of the buildings have been reallocated. So I'm just going to have to, I think it's in engineering. If I show you the aircraft production building, this is absolutely massive. It's probably one of the biggest factory buildings I've seen so far. Now, if you actually look at this, you've got the road connections, you've got lots of external connections, but more importantly on the left hand side you'll see a band where there's no buildings. So if I can drop this in, and you can see it's going to take a little while to build. I'm just going to, I mean it takes ages to build, and just there's the road connection. There it is. Let's just push this road up here, and we're just going to come across and connect there. Now what you need to do once you've got this being built is if you come back to here, what you've got to do is put pads along here that will reflect the size of the aircraft you're going to build. So if you're going to build the biggest aircraft, you've got to have something like this. And what they do is they actually overlap. You can see, let's see if we can get this to square up a little bit. We'll just see how many we can get on. I haven't really tried this. We can get. So what you probably would do is just put in, and of course you would need one of these pads for due to infrastructure. So we can only really get two pads on because there's something just coming out on that corner there. So we can get a small one in. So you can get a large one, a medium one, and a small one. But truthfully, what you'd probably do is just put two large ones in. And of course, the next thing you actually need to do, because if you produce your aircraft here, they've actually got to get out of here using a taxiway. So in some ways, your aircraft production plant actually needs access to an airport, or at least a runway. I suppose you could build your own runway, but then you'd have to have your own control tower. I don't know if you can actually move an aircraft to another location. Let's just give this a go. Oops. I want to move you here. Will you move? And so you can't actually allocate them there, but we can allocate him there. Get back walk very quickly over to the other side. Yeah, and you can see he's now taxiing. And that means that what he should do is taxi around here and he can fly to another airport. So you can move planes between airports. Give you an idea how, you can see how long it takes actually this thing to build, which is one of the reasons why I'm messing around with the aircraft here. And I probably didn't show you the resources that you would need for this. I mean, if we come back here, and if I come over here, it's not okay. Let's just turn off that. If you're going to build this manually, here's an idea of how much you're going to need in the way of resources. You can see here 550 tons of concrete, 857 tons of bricks. Is that 357 tons of prefabs? So an airplane production plant will be literally a massive investment. And I think if any of you are familiar with the game, what I will do is we come back to here. Now, the railway production plant is one of the biggest factories you will find in the game, but this gives you an idea of the difference in size and also the amount of resources required. So the railway production factory is a big investment, but an aircraft production factory is even a massive investment. Of course, once you've got this, you can just come in here, you can buy the templates. You could probably buy a yak, and then what you do is you sign that. And I think everything is on auto purchase at the moment. No, it's not. So, and I mean, you literally set all this to auto purchase, and you can see here to build this aircraft, we're going to need plastics, electronics, steel, fabric, electronics, mechanical components, and aluminium. So it's roughly the same as when you build a vehicle or a train, but of course you've got the added complication that you can see is this Yak Fit 42 requires 25 tons of aluminium. So the next question is, how do you make aluminium? And if we come up to here, my aluminium production plant here looks a bit more complicated than it actually is, but try and ignore this at the moment. I'll be talking about this a bit later on. I've also put in a vehicle production plant here just to show you the relative sizes of the buildings. Now, aluminium production starts with a bauxite mines, and I've got two bauxite mines here. I've got one that at the moment's got no mechanisms in. I've also got another one here which is actually staffed by workers. And just to show you how the difference is that if you come in here, if I buy 3 excavators, and of course the first thing they've got to do is go to the gas station, get some fuel. But we'll wait for them to go and get the fuel, and I'll just talk about it. So what you actually need to do is mine this bauxite, and if I show you here, bauxite is a new element that's on the map, and what I've actually done is I've painted this custom map so that I got the resources exactly where I needed to put things. And to actually lay out a bauxite mine, you just need to come in here, and all the chain buildings required to produce aluminium are in this list here. You can see they've actually sorted out steel, stores and aggregates, and the bauxite mines are like this. And they also do have a conveyor connection, but our guys have refueled. And if we go and actually look at the difference, you can see these guys already mined out 15 tons, but you can see their current production workday is 30 tons a day of raw bauxite. And these guys are producing 12.9 with 22 workers. So I'm going to be completely honest, my preference would be to use the excavators. If I come over here, I've got another little mine here. Now this one is literally right out on his own. So if I come into here now and we click on here, you'll see these guys are full. If I empty this out, you'll see how quickly these guys work. They've got no power supply. So in some ways, bauxite mines work the same way as stone quarries. And the only thing you will need to provide is fuel. Because if I come in here, you'll see that their actual fuel is slowly dropping. And once they run out of fuel, they will stop working. What is this here? More. What's more? Oh, so this list is so big that it's now actually overlapped around the side. So you actually come there. That's something you need to be aware of as well. Anyway. So we've now got the ability to produce the raw bauxite. And what happens next is once you produce the raw bauxite, let's reorientate the map a little bit. What you will get then is you now go into bauxite processing plant. And you can see it says cannot explore because this has been running for quite some time because I've been talking about the airfields. And you see, and this works very much the same as with the coal industry and the iron industries. So what you're literally doing is turning the raw bauxite into bauxite, which is then supplied to the aluminium plant, or it's called Aluminium plant there. And what you can see here is that in order to turn the bauxite into aluminium oxalate, I think that is actually called, you need coal and chemicals. Now there is a conveyor connection for the coal mine, but if I actually come in here and not this one, we go to factory connections, you see that this plant does not have a factory connection. So at the moment there is no production here because they've got no chemicals, but what I've actually done is I've created a factory up here that's auto purchasing chemicals. So if we come in here and get covered holes, buy a couple of covered holes and pick you up there, send you to there, pick up chemicals, unload chemicals, and what will happen is when these guys deliver the chemicals, I don't know whether the factory connection is just an oversight with the person who put this building together, and that may be fixed by the time this update goes into the stable branch. But to be honest, considering the amount of chemicals that is consumed here, it's not that big an issue, to be honest, to supply the chemicals from a warehouse using a distribution office. So now this factory here should be starting to produce aluminium oxide. Yes, we're getting a little bit of aluminium oxide flowing in. Now we're going to move on to a new feature of the game. This is, I can't remember what it's called actually, so I'm honest. Come in here. These are called dry bulk conveyors, and these got a dry bulk engine transfer. You can see they actually look different. So if I show you that normal conveyors look like this, and these are the dry bulk conveyors, they're like kind of covered over. And if I now move over to here and click on here, you'll see to produce aluminium we need aluminium oxide and chemicals again, and it's the same amount of chemicals. So chemicals are pretty fundamental to producing it. We're now producing our first aluminium. Now, one thing you do need to be aware about this aluminium factory, because aluminium is smelted with very high levels of electricity. So like the steel plant, this factory actually has a high voltage connection here. So again, if you're going to be producing your own aluminium, you do really need to have a pretty powerful power connection to it. That is how aluminium is produced. Now what I want to do now is move up to here and explain what is going on here, because if you actually look in here, you will see that the new conveyors are actually used to move cement. In fact, if I come in here, it doesn't actually show you there, but what we got here now is a new building called bulk storage. If I put this out like this here, so this is the one that's there, you'll see that these have now got a new special symbol on them, which represents the new conveyor. So if I drop that in there, and you're going to see that we've now got this connection here, and you've got a transfer site. We've also got another new building here, which is a dry bulk loading and unloading terminal, which I really like the idea of, because it means that now if you've got a cement plant, you can actually ship the cement by train using a loading and unloading dock. And while I was actually experimenting with this, it suddenly occurred to me that in the current game, you actually use cement silos. And I wondered whether there was a compatibility issue with the concrete plants that are over here. So what I've actually done is put in here the two versions of how you can connect a concrete plant to a silo. The one on the right is the way that it's currently done in game if you're still on the normal update, which is using a factory connection. This is the new connection, and if you're curious to find out how it actually works, if I can find the concrete plant, what you'll see is the concrete plant now actually has both a dry connection connector and the factory connections. And I think this has been done to ensure compatibility with the game. And it also applies the same to the concrete plant here. So this is the standard concrete plant. You can see it's both got a dry conveyor connection out this side and a factory connection out this side. But one thing you do need to be aware of if you use mods, because up here I've got a small cement plants, two versions, and you can see at the moment they will still only use factory connections. So if you are using a modded cement plant and you want to use these available road connections, if I come in here, and I think it's under metallurgy, so what you'd have to do is use a silo to do the conversion between the two. So you can do something like that, because you can't connect this up there. And that also applies to the, to do that, the dry bulk storage. You can see the dry bulk storage only has the new conveyor type. So that is something that you do need to bear in mind, especially if you are going to be doing what I'm going to be doing, which is using the new update in my existing Let's Play. Now, one thing I did do is go in to check in my current Let's Play to see whether the cement production was still working, and it is still working. But what I will say is that when I clicked on an existing concrete plant, the game actually crashed. But after I reloaded it, everything seemed to be working normally. So this goes to show that if you've got an existing game and you're a bit worried about the impact of this new update, it does seem to be save game compatible with this proviso that if you've got cement plants and you want to use them, you're going to have to possibly adjust them a little bit. Or if you've got something that works like I've got, just leave it alone and just get it there. And I'm pretty sure that the modders will get into fixing the cement plants, and probably there'll be one or two other things that need to be fixed. And I think I've probably rambled on quite long enough now for these two components, and it probably explains why I don't want to talk about tourism. That will be a subject of a separate video, so this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the episode, hope you found it interesting, and until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.